society of which your enterprise is a part. And what I call a triple bottom line operation. What it means is that not be a burden on the planet of its natural resource, which is fast getting degraded. What it means is to create multiplier in sustainable livelihoods so that many more people can get jobs of dignity. As you know, that India is a young country with the average age of around 25, and every year we are going to have 10 to 13 million people coming into the job market. So it is the responsibility of business, in partnership with civil society, in partnership with government, in partnership with other businesses, to be able to create this opportunity. Now, all this will not happen unless we change the rules of capitalism that has brought us so far. The capitalism that has brought us so far, we have grown in the last 50 years from 1 trillion to 70 trillion in the global economy, but 1/3 of the global population lives in abject poverty, and we've already lost 1/4 of topsoil, we've lost 1/3 of biodiversity, we've lost 1/3 of forest resource, and in our own lifetimes, we will lose 70% of coral reef unless we do something significant about it. And the impact on the emerging economies, such as India, is going to be far more adverse. So therefore, innovate on business models that integrate the creation of ecological capital and the creation of sustainable livelihoods as part and parcel of satisfying the consumer and creating shareholder wealth. We'll have to migrate to a new model whereby serving society is the principal purpose of business and the shareholder value is merely a reward for having done it well. Now, I am a votary of those that you should earn the right to speak and to preach. But let me tell you, I, as a leader of ITC, and ITC has been practicing this philosophy over the last 16 years. And I want to tell you that it is possible. If you get committed to the superordinate, to doing something bigger with a vision such as this, it is possible to do so. I want to just illustrate, just to give you the credibility that it is possible, that ITC, my company, is the only company in the world, Ambassador Nancy Powell is here, the only company in the world which is water positive. We generate twice the freshwater resource than what we consume, even though we are a water-guzzling paper business as part of our portfolio. We are a carbon-positive company. We sequester twice the carbon of that we emit into the atmosphere. We are a waste recycling positive company. And we provide sustainable livelihoods to almost 5 million people. I won't go into these details because I don't have the time, but it is educative. If I may humbly suggest, visit the ITC portal and gain a little information on how it is done. So I would say that a country is as good as its companies. And therefore, we must keep the country ahead of the company and the institution ahead of the individual. Our country can go forward to the extent that we have the leadership such as this, the talent such as this, and we will go forward depending upon how much this talent is committed to the superordinate goal of transforming our society. Ask what you can do for India rather than asking what India can do for you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning. It's a privilege to address the IIT alumni today. the Indian Institute of Technology are more than just a family of universities to me. They're a part of my family history. My father was a founding member of the Kharagpur faculty, so I first came to Kharagpur when the Hijli detention camp was being transformed from penal colony to the Indian Institute of Technology. It was a mark of India's new leadership that they created in Hijli, not a museum of iniquities, but a university dedicated to the improvement of India through technology. As Nehru said, the IITs represented India's future in the making. The Indian Institute of Technology represents a founding faith in the ability of Indians to transform India. The faith was rooted in awareness of the past, whether it's Wood Steel or Nalanda University or Kulti, home of the first Indian blast furnace, or even, you may not agree with it, Asia's largest car factory in Uttarpara. India's past told our leaders that whatever the restraints of empire, the new nation possessed the ability to make India's future. It is fitting, therefore, that the theme of this conference is transforming India. After all, since independence, India has been transformed from the cotton economy to the brick nation. Today, we know where we have succeeded constitutionally, in preserving freedom and democracy, economically, in services, in IT, or biotechnology. We know, too, where we fall short. In recent decades, it was relatively easy to do well in India. You get a license or get an MBA, some contacts, and a contract to supply a defined service to a corporation. So we had a lot of products and services, very well, made in India, but very few made by India. With a weak global economy creating spare capacity in the developed economies, the era of growth through outsourcing has ended. Now growth is stuttering, partly because of global weaknesses, but also because investment is too low, our manufacturing and infrastructure is weak, our decision-making stagnant. These are long-term problems that cannot be solved by the passing of a law or the removal of a regulation. We have to find a long-term path to growth. I believe a culture of innovation through technology is central to India's next transformation, the shift to general prosperity. It's always harder to build a future through innovation, research and technology than through temporary trading advantage from lower cost, but it's much more permanent. That's why IITs matter to India's future. Over the years, IITs have not just been centers for world-class scientific education and research. They have also created the leaders, the change makers, the creative sparks who have driven India's development over the last 60 years. In the list of speakers at this conference, you can see how IIT alumni are shaping India and the world. To pick just two examples, Harish Hande's work on sustainable energy and Professor Basu's work in assistive technologies for the disabled show how technological innovation transforms lives far beyond the classroom or laboratory. Kalpana Kochar has argued in a paper for the IMF that a key reason for India's unusually structured economic success after liberalization was the existence of a small but highly capable services and manufacturing workforce. Dr. Kochar showed India had a far greater investment in tertiary education for a country of its income, and Indian Institute of Technologies created capabilities that did not exist in the typical poor country allowing India to follow a different growth path. This matters a great deal because we all know India does not even come close to matching China on traditional measures like foreign investment, infrastructure, or advanced manufacturing facilities. I first visited China in 1982, where there were traffic jams because of bicycles. And now you can see what happens in China. In 30 years, you see magnificent bridges, rapid transport system, fast-built special economic environment. And even last week, when Jaguar Land Rover decided to sign an agreement to manufacture there, the first car is going to be rolled out in 6 months. In India, we have teeming cities, crumbling roads, and drawn-out political struggles over a few hundred acres for a factory. We can wail about this and should try to change what we can, but we must also make the most of any chance to make a different path to growth. The key lies in what Kochar calls creation of capability. This is the ability to develop and exploit new ideas that leapfrog the traditional national path to growth by producing something where a product or a service better than anywhere else in the world. It is appropriate that we are joined by Ambassador Pal because institutions like MIT and Caltech show us how such capability is created, and in my country, where we have Oxford, Cambridge, and Imperial College, and other universities. Technology research creates ecologies of innovation where solutions are found to problems from natural gas extraction to computing to material science and nanotechnology. Examples of the centrality of domestic information can be found across India's business. Would Tata Motors have had the ability to design the Nano if it had not developed the research and development capability to design the Indica first? Would Wipro have developed its world-leading software capability without employees who had learned how to build and program computers from the inside out? Would Mahindra and Mahindra been able to develop the Scorpio SUV without leaders like Pawan Goenka, a graduate of IIT Kanpur with global experience? With the heritage of the IIT's Indian history of innovation and the strength of our intellectual diaspora, it is within Indians' reach to be a global giant in innovation and technology research. This will drive Indian growth in the long term. However, we must be frank. For all the successes in this hall, for all the graduates doing inspiring work, for all the engineers working overseas, India is far from where she needs to be. Here in Bengal, we have everything: natural resources, location, population, intellectual capital needed for success. But we lack the hunger to put these things together for the common good. If we were or are to change this, the creation of capabilities must both be improved at the very top and spread more broadly. At the top, India has only 3 world's top 400 universities. All are IITs. China has 9. And add to that, Hong Kong has 5. And you can see the emerging gap that's developing alongside infrastructure and manufacturing gaps. So we must press ahead with the world-class innovation universities that the center has proposed. But our universities must change too. World-class institutions need the best faculty and to teach students and the methods of the world's best universities. That means financing levels must increase and investment in facilities must jump up. But I'll tell you one thing, it's not going to be an easy path. Let me put it simply. You can't expect MIT results on nursery school budgets. If we want universities to transform India, we need to transform universities from the fee and loan system to teaching styles. We also need our innovation universities to truly look outwards. That means our new innovation universities must be better integrated into the economy and into their communities. This year, I had the chance to visit IIT Bhubaneswar, the newest addition to the IIT family. IIT Bhubaneswar has created a partnership with steel and mineral companies to develop new material composition that will help support Odisha's mines and address the imperative of carbon reduction. My own faculty is joining in this mission. If we are bringing together global steel and local mining companies, IIT faculty and WMG researchers to create experimental and computational approaches that will improve the material uses of Odisha's precious natural resources. Nor is the value of innovative university research restricted to the private sector. They also include our biggest social challenges. Chief among these are the need to expand technical and vocational education to the Indian masses. The World Bank tells us that India needs 1.2 million additional teachers just to meet the needs of the RTE Act. Yet less than 10% of applicants currently pass the teacher eligibility tests. So how can we educate the next generation of children at the level we need? Only through technological innovation. As A.V. Banerjee has argued that we must scale up the number of people that can be reached by a good teacher by using technological means. In that light, the Akash tablet becomes not a prestige project, but instead a spur to possibility and competition, pulling in investment and research to solve a common problem. Similarly, the difficulty of manufacturing tablets in India underlines the need for universities to develop India's manufacturing sector, another huge challenge, especially important to job creation. To do this, we again need top-class private universities, we need greater industrial investment in research, and we need a rapid expansion of vocational education partnerships. Because unless both go together, you cannot create jobs. Whether in virtual car design, low-carbon energy, nanomaterials, or data security, and processing the next generation of Indian businesses need research and technical training facilities to put their employees at the cutting edge. High-skilled employees and employers have a direct interest in liberating the talents of the workforce from shop floor to research lab. Universities are well placed to help deliver this, both in the workplace and on campus. Finally, whether through student loan repayment or direct research funding, employers can provide the stable income educational bodies in India desperately need to expand. All this brings me back to the value of leadership. The history of IITs tell us the essential role of leadership in creating capability through innovation. For industrial giants such as Tata's, to new giants like Wipro, or to social entrepreneurs and green growth advocates of Selco, the common threads of education and innovation combine to create success. So as a graduate, I'm extremely proud of the IIT's contribution to the changes in India since independence. If a very few IITs have been the key to the creation of so much capability, how much have we lost in the crores of applicants who did not get such a chance? We must now meet that challenge of expanding India's world-class institutions and using our foundation of technological innovation to share the capability widely. If we do this, we will stay true to the visionaries who founded the first IITs in the midst of tumult, and will guide the nation through the greater transformation to come. That's a prize worth fighting for. Thank you.
Namaste, assalamu alaikum, good morning to all of you. It is a very real honor for me to be here today especially considering that I'm the one that couldn't get her speech on her iPad last night, and to think of the audience that I am addressing today. To my fellow Americans who have come back to India, a very, very special welcome to you. I'm coming back to Calcutta, to this very auditorium that I remember from my days as the American Consul General here. For those of you who have doubts about whether India is in fact transforming, I encourage you to go stand on the steps of this building and look outside. From the early 90s to today, growth and progress are evident everywhere. Rajarhat, Salt Lake City, the expansion of infrastructure, new buildings, and high-tech companies all signify change and transformation in this city of joy. U.S. companies like Cognizant, IBM, Foster Wheeler, Aclaris, Lexmark, Genpact, just to name a few, have a strong presence here, employing tens of thousands in high-skill, high-technology jobs in Kolkata and West Bengal. Companies like Caterpillar and Joy Mining, who participated in the International Mining and Machinery Exhibition this week, are providing high-end, high-value U.S. technology to mining and manufacturing sector in the region. These are just a few examples of U.S. companies operating in Kolkata and West Bengal and helping to transform the landscape of this region. Equally transformed has been our U.S.-India bilateral relationship. What hasn't changed is the importance of the people-to-people base that underlies it, along with our shared democratic values. I salute each of you who has been to the United States either for education, you are now citizens, and for your role in improving our relationship. I want to take a little time today to focus on two aspects of it that I think are particularly important in the transformative nature of India. These would be the science and technology and education areas. For more than 65 years, scientists, engineers, and technical experts from India and the United States have worked side by side to address critical development challenges in areas such as food production, climate, health, education, and energy in India. Although India's S&T establishment has made enormous progress, there is still much that we can do to collaborate further. To jointly address this issue, the United States set aside $15 million, or 675 million rupees, to fund an endowment for joint research and development, innovation, entrepreneurial, and commercial activities in science and technology. That was way too long a name, and it has been shorted to the U.S.-India S&T endowment. India agreed to set aside money annually to match the interest from this fund. It was inaugurated in June 2010 at the Joint Commission meeting in Washington, D.C., and is supervised by a joint board consisting of 9 members from each country. The S&T dialogue is one of the most active of our more than 25 bilateral dialogues and continues to produce both research and a framework for continuing education. Closer to home for you IITians is a reminder that the United States also contributed directly to the establishment of IITs. A half-century ago, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, organized and led the Kanpur Indo-American Program, funded by USAID, and including experts from other U.S. academic institutions to help establish IIT Kanpur. More than 100 U.S. faculty members served at IIT Kanpur during its formative decade. Based on that experience and our experience around the world, we know that education is an important part of any discussion of a society's transformation, sustainability, and development, particularly in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, the STEM fields. In both the United States and India, a key focus is on skills development. I want to take a few minutes to move away from the land of the IITs and to talk about how the United States is training workers to provide them with the skills that are needed to compete globally and in new fields. Much of that training is done by community colleges. These institutions are very closely tied to community needs, and working with local industries, they have been able to train workers with immediately applicable skills. India has also recognized a need for such training. Without it, the huge youth dividend could go unrealized. India is planning to work with the American community college system to establish a similar system here to meet the huge unmet demand of Indian students for higher education, but one that will allow them to succeed in India's growing economy. At the Summer 2012 Higher Education Summit, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton emphasized that the U.S. government supports these plans to bring community college education to India. She was particularly passionate in her belief that the American community colleges have been critically important to U.S. economic success, confiding that while world-class education institutions like the Ivy League universities or India's own IITs are important, there is perhaps an even more important role for community colleges to play. She said, "We have many jobs that go unfilled because of the lack of linkage between the skills needed in the jobs market and the training and education of the workforce." We here in the U.S. Mission in India enthusiastically support India's interest in exploring the community college model and have pledged to work with India as it sets up its own system, creating partnerships between the private sector, education institutions, and the state governments. We believe this approach can develop needed skills to maximize employment opportunities for Indian graduates. I also want to talk a minute about the information technology that is beginning radically to change the field of education. It is something we have to embrace and an area where Indian Americans can share their strengths. A few weeks ago, the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching named Antar Kao, a professor of mechanical engineering at the University of South Florida, a 2012 Professor of the Year. He was lauded for his innovative work in using technology and social media to reach tens of thousands of students around the world studying to be engineers. He started exploring the use of technology to reach students long before anybody talked of online learning or massive online open courses that are now in the limelight. Kao is the product both of Indian education at BITS and Pilani and American learning from Clemson University. It's clear that the jobs of the future, especially in critical needs areas like science, technology, engineering, and math, will go to the smartest job applicants, no matter what country they come from. China is doing a particularly good job in preparing their young people for the global marketplace. It is already graduating over 1 million college graduates a year in the STEM areas, while India graduates approximately half that number and the United States fewer than half. Both the United States and India need to do a better job. This is why the IITs are so important and why the U.S. government is eager to promote cooperation between Indian and U.S. institutions of higher education. We recognize that we need to foster global skills and international experience in our young people. The United States warmly welcomes Indian students into its colleges and universities. During the 2011-2012 academic year, over 100,000 Indian students studied in the U.S. India is second only to China in terms of international student population at U.S. higher education institutions. We are making efforts to bolster this number by meeting with Indian universities and colleges, as well as American ones, to encourage partnerships and shared degree programs. Additionally, we are actively encouraging more American students to study and explore India through a new initiative called Passport to India. We believe the exchange of ideas and experiences broadens everyone's horizons. This leads to collaboration and the development of human capital in both our nations. India and the United States both recognize that sustained educational exchanges are key, and that's why we've placed such an emphasis on the U.S.-India higher education dialogue. One of the products of that dialogue is the Obama Singh Knowledge Initiative for the 21st century, through which we are funding partnerships between institutions in India and the United States. Last June, the first 8 partnerships were announced, and we expect to announce more every spring for the next 4 years. As you know only too well, IITs and IIT graduates have excelled and brought about transformational changes in all fields that we have discussed this morning. And expanding educational institutions of this caliber is essential to shaping India and its future. The IITs are probably the hardest school in the world to get into, to the best of my knowledge, according to Vinod Khosla, who got into IIT Delhi about 30 years ago. And I'm sure all of you in the audience know this to be true. The impact of graduates such as Khosla, who moved to the United States after he graduated and co-founded Sun Microsystems, also play a critical role in the evolution of the India-US relationship. Now one of Silicon Valley's most recognized venture capitalists, Khosla is just one of thousands of IIT graduates who have succeeded in the United States. As he said on a recent episode of CBS News series 60 Minutes, Microsoft, Intel, PCs, Sun Microsystems, you name it, I can't imagine a major area where Indian IIT engineers haven't played a leading role. As I've traveled around India since my arrival here as the ambassador in April, I've met with many of the high-tech entrepreneurs and operators of businesses, both American and Indian. I've been impressed with the enormous energy that is going into this field and the enormous prospects that it gives us for progress. I've discussed with some of them the possibility that perhaps a new additional criteria could be added to the IIT graduation requirements, asking that each graduate to prepare an app, an application, that they would then turn over to the government or to an NGO that would address one of the urgent needs as the government looks to use IT services to deliver services to the population of India, as NGOs work to deliver additional support for these. I hadn't focused on the idea that there were 2 lakh IIT graduates. I would like to encourage you to do the same thing, to think about transformation by app, to think about providing some intellectual property to the government or to an NGO. I have 2 particular areas that I am going to suggest to you. India, Ethiopia, and the United States issued a global call for child survival in June. This is an area where we are trying to work around the globe to make sure that every child makes it to 5. If you can make it to 5, you have a pretty good chance of making it to 65. But we need some help. 1 of every 5 children in the world who is under 5 years of age is in India. And 1 of every 5 children who dies before the age of 5 is also in India. So looking at some apps from all of you, from the IIT graduates that would support nutrition, health, would be an incredible contribution. I also think, particularly given how phonetic Hindi is, that the use of the telephones and the use of the tablets, you could do some tremendous apps for literacy, particularly for all those girls who didn't go to school a few years ago, but who are going to be in the marketplace of India for the next 40 or 50 years. So I encourage you, your companies, and the IITs that are the professors who are here to look at what we can do at transformation by app. I want to encourage all of you to continue to engage in areas beyond business and technology, working with U.S. counterparts to address critical development issues affecting the globe. Your funding ideas on this and other new platforms under design are most welcome. The U.S. applauds and thanks the IITs for the intellectual and technical rigor that exists among IIT alumni, and looks forward to even greater productive collaboration in the future. Thank you.
The way I see one problem that Indian universities, the IIT has done a good job, but we have not done a good job in R&D, is a structural deficiency versus what US great research universities has been able, which is attracting talents. Of course, it started from the Second World War, and then the policymaker took advantage of it and creating a major science policies. So today, the 50 greatest American research universities produce, supported by and the defense funding, many fundamental research that has given America a major advantage. Now, we, over the last 5 years, have not been able to pass an education bill. And what's good, what is the best in the world? I mean, I know what you are doing
you want me
company.
you want me to speak? Yeah. No, I think you,
the global ecosystem.
No, you make a very valid observation. Can you hear me? Yeah. Purnendu makes a very valid observation as to the inadequacy of our R&D infrastructure. Now, I will give you one illustration. If you look at agriculture, if you look at China, they began their economic miracle through agrarian reforms. And today, whatever they did with collective farms, incentivized people, the farmers, and brought it into the market. But what they also did was to incentivize their research scientists. So as a result, the amount of money that they put into research, that went into research, is 100%. And the salaries that their scientists earn are from marketing their research outcomes with the private sector. Now, India has the largest number of agricultural scientists in the world. But if I give you one illustration of a Punjab Agricultural University, only 3% of the allocated budget goes into actual research. 97% goes into salaries and so on. So I totally agree with you that even though in areas where we have deployed enormous amount of resource, human resource, by virtue of the absence of the incentive system, we've not been able to get the results. So the result is that today, in rice production, China has twice the productivity, in wheat 1.5 times, in oil seeds twice the productivity. So, you know, today we are talking about the land acquisition bill, and if you ask people what is the major bottleneck in developing our physical infrastructure or in the industrialization, people will name land, access to land, as one of the major issues. But if we could get productivity as good as China in only these 3 areas, cereals and oil seeds, we would release 20 million hectares of land that would then be available.